Hi friends, Merrideth Jiles here with Backyard Basics. And today we're going to talk about vines. You know, vines are a huge group of plants. There's lots of different types. But I think there's no better way to get a lot of plant in a very small footprint than a vine. Vines can be grown to cover sheds, to obscure views, or they can just be grown for lots of flowers. There's many, many uses for them. Now there's four main types of vines. There's annuals, perennials, deciduous, and evergreen, just like many other plants. Annual vines would include things like the morning glory, cypress vine, or purple hyacinth bean vine. These are plants that are typically grown from seed. They grow very quickly and have a long bloom period. But come the first good freeze, those plants will die. Now most of these plants are pretty good reseeders, so if you don't disturb the soil too much, you should have them return from seed the next year. Some examples of perennial vines would be the passion vine, coral vine, or Dutchman's pipe. These plants also grow very quickly and have long bloom seasons. They will, however, freeze to the ground in the winter, but they will return from their own roots the next year. And on a quick side note, the passion vine and the Dutchman's pipe are not only beautiful flowering plants, they're actually excellent food sources for some of our butterflies. The third type of vine would be a deciduous vine. Much like a deciduous tree, it's going to lose all of its leaves in the winter, but it will re-leaf from the original wood the next year, so you're not having to start over from the ground. You've got your full plant there. And finally, there are the evergreen vines, and they're just that, green all year. Now most evergreen vines do have a shorter bloom period than an annual or a perennial, but they're great if you need coverage. And some great examples of evergreen vines would be star jasmine, cross vine, our native coral honeysuckle, or fig vine. Now when considering where you're going to plant a vine, one thing you need to keep in mind is you're going to need something for the vine to grow on. Most vines are going to need some kind of structure that they can wrap themselves around. It could be a chain link fence, a trellis, or perhaps something that you rig up yourself with some bamboo poles or some wire, anything that that vine can wrap around. Some vines actually have tendrils that they use to reach out and grab to pull themselves up, if you'll think of it that way. There are a few vines that can actually grow directly on material like a rock wall. The fig vine would be a great example of that. Plant it close to a stucco wall, brick, something of that nature, and it will grab right on and grow right up. One question we get asked a lot is, what is a good flowering vine for the shade? Well, there's really not a great flowering vine for the shade. Plants like star jasmine will do all right in a bright shade, perhaps under a large tree or a place that gets a little morning sun. But there really aren't many great flowering vines for heavy shade. Now vines like the fig vine, fig ivy, or the Virginia creeper, a native plant, they do well in the shade, and those are great plants to put in that area. But you're not going to get a whole lot of blooming from a vine in the shade. Like any other plant, vines can be trimmed, particularly evergreen vines. If you're looking for a green fence, once they get to that top, be sure to trim them a little bit. That'll encourage them to branch out lower and stay nice and full. Also with annual vines like the morning glory, you can deadhead them to prevent a lot of spreading if you have too much seed. It also will encourage more blooms. Also, keep in mind that a perennial vine like a passion vine is going to freeze in the winter. You will want to come in after that first good freeze and remove all the dead material that's on your trellis. Again, it will return from the roots the next year, but that dead material can be kind of unsightly in the wintertime. This is Merrideth Jiles with Backyard Basics talking about vines.